Aha! Well, if you read the title of this video, you'll understand that I successfully broke my PS3. This was more of just a learning process. I was practicing, trying to see what different techniques work and don't work for PS3 delidding, just to see sort of what's BS, what's not. So in this case, I was trying out using some feeler gauges just to see if we can remove the hard silicon that holds the IHS onto the PS3 CPU. If you're unfamiliar with this, the way the PS3 CPU and GPU work is they've got the die, and then on top of that they've got some thermal interface material, just like some silicon-based stuff, and then glued on top of that with a bead of silicon or something similar. It's got a metal heat spreader to help spread that heat out and give it more surface area to get good connection to the heatsink. And the problem with it is when this silicon, when the silicon-based thermal paste, not the actual glue that holds the IHS on, but the interface material, over time it dries out. It's sort of, sometimes it'll pump out and it'll go off the die, or it'll just sort of evaporate. Basically, if you look at a really old computer, like something from like 20-30 years ago, you take the heatsink off, there's high chance that the thermal paste inside, the silicon based stuff, or whatever it's made of, has just turned into powder basically, and it loses a lot of its thermal conductivity, end up with hotspots and things. And that is part of the issue with the PS3s, is because the original 90nm model runs so hot, the pace at which this thermal paste dries up is a little bit faster in my opinion. I haven't done any exclusive testing on it, but that's the case that it seems. So to remedy this, you need to remove the heat spreader, and the heat spreader is stuck down with some fairly hard silicon. It looks like when you peel it off, it kind of feels like almost like Sikaflex, like that kind of consistency where it's a bit harder than, say, silicon you'd use in your bathroom or something. I guess because it needs to be temperature resistant, I'm not sure. Maybe it's closer to like gasket material or something. But anyway, to remove that, there's a lot of different methods on YouTube, and I was just trying to see which one would be the safest, because a lot of people that watch my videos, they watch them for like the guides on how to do things, and I don't want to share something that is a bit too risky, especially for someone that's never done this before. I want to try and make it as simple as possible. It's my whole methodology with tutorials, is just to make things as easy to follow as possible and avoid breaking things basically. So yeah, I was seeing some other people's guides and seeing what methods may work better and what ones are just a bit silly. And there was one that uses a metal shim. A lot of people end up getting paint knives and sharpening them. And the issue here is the top layer of the processor substrate, especially on the CPU, because it's fairly sparse around the die. It has a solder resist on there, but it's extremely thin. Like, you could scratch this off with, like, if you rubbed hard enough, probably your fingernail. It's not very thick. And what happened here was I obviously slipped or something, or I've gone in at the wrong angle, and it's a very thin piece of metal. Like, it's 0.01 millimeters or something. It's a lot thinner than, say, like the sort of micro shims you'd use on like repairing phones and things. It's even thinner than that. They're feeler gauges. They're made for machining and stuff, so they have to be fairly thin to be accurate at those small sizes. And yeah, anyway, I sort of must have dug too deep or rubbed it too hard or had my tongue in the wrong direction or something and scratched it, which is fine. I'll admit mistakes when I make mistakes. So yeah, here we are. We're trying to fix it. I don't know what this trace does, but it's kind of important because the PS3 does not work without it. And what I'm just going to do here is pretty standard procedure for doing trace repair, especially this small. To put this in perspective, this is the tip I'm using is the smallest tip for the smallest JBC tip I have, which is for the 210. No, the T115 is the handle. That's the smallest size, and the tip of this iron, the soldering iron, is like about the size of a needle, like a sewing needle, maybe a slightly larger sewing needle, but not. It's definitely smaller than I think the micro pencil for the Hacko, if you've seen videos of those, because that's the most popular one people tend to use. Yeah, so fairly small trace. Luckily, it's not length matched or anything at this point of the trace. It probably is further along. I didn't actually look. But yeah, luckily it's not length matched, so I don't have to worry too much about that. So this is pretty basic repair procedure for traces, no matter what size they are, is scrape back some of the trace, clear away the broken parts, because as you could see earlier in the video, some of it was just hanging off because it got scraped off and it was like just floating there. Those bits you want to get rid of because there's nothing holding them down and they'll just crack anyway. Here is some, this is the thinnest wire that I have. It's enameled wire. It is 0.01 millimeters, I think. Let me see, yeah. 0.01 millimeters. This is conductor wire, it says, for phones. Its part number is FX91. It's made by Kazi, but heaps of different brands make this. Mechanic even have some brands. Yeah, so even though this looks like, I don't know what I'm doing, you have to remember the scale of this is quite small. Like that wire is quite small. So there's a few different methods you can do when trying to run a jumper like this, especially on something so small or even on a flexible PCB. Is you can actually anchor it first, which I think I ended up doing here. You anchor it first to a different pad like ground, which is around this pad here, I think. And just to hold it in place until you get ready to solder it to the rest of the trace. But yeah, the whole point of this video is just to show that like everyone makes mistakes, and that's part of learning. To be honest, that's how I feel. I think a lot of other people maybe feel that as well, but you won't learn anything unless you make mistakes. And I see there's a lot of videos on YouTube, Twitter and everything of people that they only ever post when they do something right. They don't post when they've messed something up. They just want to be perfect. And it gives like this sort of impression that if you're not perfect, you can't make videos, you can't do anything like that. And I don't know, makes you feel a bit bad about yourself. Well, it does for me anyway. I'm like, I'm not going to bother trying to make this video because someone else has already done it and they've done it perfectly and they're perfect at everything else they do. And it's kind of a bad habit to fall into with making videos, is just like comparing yourself, I guess, or I don't know what I'm trying to get at here. Like, I don't know, just sometimes YouTube and things, people are just too perfect with stuff, and yeah, it's not genuine sometimes is what I'm trying to get at, I think. And I'm here to show that I could have just never posted this video and just be like, look, PS3 works fine, but I don't know. I like showing my mistakes sometimes, or I like showing my mistakes, and it helps me learn, so maybe it'll help someone else learn. So yeah, so what I'm doing here is just cleaning away some of that flux, because I've actually mixed fluxes here. I've mixed Amtech non-clean tacky flux, and the flux that's inside the solder itself is I think it's rosin based, because I used a paste. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it has rosin in it. That kind of yellow look is usually from rosin, maybe. And when you mix those two fluxes together, they get kind of gummy and gross, and you end up actually, as you can see, it's like soldering through syrup. It's not nice, so you got to clean it off. I really got to get some flux cleaner, and which is a bit different to isopropyl. It's more aggressive at cleaning things. So here I am. I'm just basically just trying to solder on the top of this other trace, because this is so small and there's no other via here. There's no other like larger pad that I can run this jumper to. It does look like it's in a differential pair as well, because they're sort of right next to each other, these two traces, which is pretty common for a CPU. But yeah, this trace from memory goes directly underneath the die, and I don't know where it goes on the other side of this processor, so I have to be very careful here. So here I am just cleaning up the flux. You can see sort of where the two fluxes are mixed together and they make this kind of weird goop. And it is not fun to work around. It's basically like soldering with syrup. And yeah, now that I've cleaned this more and the light's changed a bit, you can see kind of how deep this scratch is. There's some damage to the other set of traces just above here, but it wasn't actually broken like this one was. This trace was completely cut in half. And the lens I'm using here is I think the smallest, not the super fine lens on the microscope that I made a video of the other day, but the sort of closer one. And I'm just using some hot air here to sort of dry it out and see if I can reflow that joint, but it's kind of tricky, especially so close to the die. I was trying really hard not to overheat it or anything, and I'd already gotten this substrate a bit wet with alcohol. I didn't want to popcorn it, which is a real risk, especially with these sort of multi-layer PCB materials, especially for CPUs. They've got so many layers in them. So yeah, this video is just sort of a bit of a ramble. I'm halfway through making another video about an upscaler that isn't ready yet. So I thought I'd just share this here, have a little bit of a chat. I don't know, just, yeah. Sometimes you feel a bit down in the dumps when you see some other creators or people in parallel or the same kind of genre or niche as you, and they seem to be doing everything really well, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I think it's great, but like you kind of feel, I don't know, why should I bother if someone else has already done such a good job with something? Like I don't want to, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, here we are, still trying to heat this up. I might just skip this ahead a bit because this didn't really work because I couldn't get it hot enough, especially because the chip was still on the board. But yeah, so basically ended up just going back in with the iron here and just reflowing that on top of that trace. And then there you go, it's nice and sturdy now. And this definitely does work because I've been using this PS3 for like a couple of weeks now. Now I just got to come in and clean it up, and Bob's your auntie. So yeah, if you ever do scratch the top of a PS3 CPU or anything like this, it is fixable. It's a little bit tricky, but you definitely could fix it if you had the patience to do it. This was only like a 30, I can't remember how much this PS3 was, like $30 or $50 or something. So like, wouldn't have been a huge loss if I couldn't fix it, but I really wanted to challenge myself and do something a little bit different here, or something that I haven't done in a while because I'm not really doing much repair work anymore since I moved. So yeah, it's kind of fun, refreshing, and yeah. So yeah, maybe leave a comment down below, and what things have you broken recently that you are trying to fix, and maybe we can work things out together. But yeah, the alcohol makes it look so much nicer. So yeah, traces all fixed up here. If I had any solder mask, which I don't, I would have put it over the top, but I think I just put some tape over it and glued the IHS back down with some new silicone and some new thermal paste, and it'll be fine for the next 15 years, hopefully. But yeah, if you like this video, maybe give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below. This is sort of just like having a chat kind of video. I know it's not good to mix up content like this on YouTube anymore, but I don't know. Maybe it'll help someone. Maybe it'll start a discussion of don't have to be that perfect. I don't know. Anyway, till next time, see ya.